Kindly just move out of the dashboard. It's pretty crowded. Senator Eddie Okech. Senator SIFUNA.
Honorable Speaker, allow me to make brief comments on the two statements by the Senator for Nandi on the pending bills owed to Kenya Power by counties and the revenue streams for Kenya Power, alternative revenue streams. Honorable Speaker, I am sure you all remember there was a very embarrassing spectacle in Nairobi just a few days ago, where the county government of Nairobi got into a spat with the Kenya Power company over unpaid bills. Honorable Speaker, it resulted in something of very petulant action that was taken by the governor or the county government of Nairobi to dump garbage outside the offices of Kenya Power and other premises of the power utility. I am happy that my governor has already apologized to the people of Kenya for that unfortunate incident. But Honorable Speaker, there are very serious underlying issues, and I'm happy that this statement has been brought by the Senator for Nandi. Number one, Honorable Speaker, I understand that there has been a long drawn-out disagreement about how much Nairobi owes to the Kenya Power Company. And I am also aware that there have been joint auditing of those bills by both the utility and by the county government of Nairobi. And there is a joint communique that was signed on just how much this amount is. There was an initial claim of about 3 billion Kenya shillings, but after auditing jointly, they came to a figure of 1.8 billion Kenya shillings. Now, of importance, Honorable Speaker, is that out of that 1.8 that is claimed by the utility, the Kenya Power, 1.5 billion shillings is arising out of street lighting. Now, here's a conversation that I want this Senate to help us with, especially here in Nairobi. Honorable Speaker, although this street lighting is termed as a function of the county government, this is admittedly a national security function. And the Ministry of Energy themselves have agreed as much. I sat in a meeting with the CS for Energy, the Honorable Wandai, and he had told me that the ministry has acknowledged that this is something that the national government has to take up as a security function. And in fact, by the time of that meeting, which was about a month and a half ago, he told me that they had already written to EPRA so that this becomes a formal policy that county governments should not continue to pay street lighting bills. Honorable Speaker, the funny thing is that although Kenya Power acknowledges that the bulk of that bill is arising out of street lighting, when you have a dispute with them, they don't go and switch off the street lights, which is also a tacit admission on their part that they know that it is critical for Nairobi to continue to have those streets lit. If you look at the law that exists, Section 5 and Section 6 of the Urban Areas and Cities Act, it is recognized that Nairobi stands in a unique position as a seat of power, as a capital city of the country, and also as a diplomatic hub, Honorable Speaker. And that the national government, although certain functions are county functions, must step in from time to time to be able to support the workings of the county government. So, Honorable Speaker, we want to continue to urge the Ministry of Energy to follow through with that promise and make sure that because this is a national security function, they help counties to be able to settle these bills. Finally, Honorable Speaker, because you limited our time, there is a conversation about sources of revenue, own source revenue for counties. Honorable Speaker, we have a spectre here in Nairobi where the county government used to host utilities, like they would do those utility lines on the ground. And then if you have your fiber optic cables or data cables you wanted to use, you would pay the county, and it was a very serious source of revenue. We have a situation where Kenya Power says they are not supposed to pay for way leaves in Nairobi or in other open spaces because the law says that you have to get the consent of a minister, which first of all is ridiculous, Honorable Speaker. You give a county the power to levy rates, and then you make those powers subject to the national government again. Of course, the CS for Energy will never allow Nairobi to levy rates for those way leaves. But the most critical thing is, Honorable Speaker, the Kenya Power Company then takes up business that was a source of revenue for the county government and tells the service providers who are doing data connections and the others that you can actually put your cables on our power lines, which is essentially robbing county governments of on-source revenue. So, Honorable Speaker, it is a situation that I am hoping, because I also happen to be a member of the Energy Committee, we will have a robust conversation about it. And lastly, Speaker, one of the things that is forgotten in the public debate, That bill, the Energy Act that restricts collection of rates on way leaves without the permission of the CS, is a 2019 bill. If you look at the 1.5 billion Kenya shillings that Kenya Power says is a debt owed by Nairobi, those debts precede that law. So, Honorable Speaker, how can you tell us that in 2017, for instance, we did not owe Nairobi money for way leaves? And a final appeal on behalf of the people of Nairobi. The national government institutions in Nairobi have refused to pay rates. Unfortunately, one of those institutions, Honorable Speaker, is this House. The Senate and the National Assembly, Parliament as an institution. All these buildings here in the Parliament Square and in the Government Square, they have refused to pay Nairobians rates. As we speak, it's over 100 billion Kenya shillings that we are owed as Nairobians for unpaid rates by national governments. If you gave us that money, Honorable Speaker, we would be able to do a light rail, the equivalent of the one that was done in Addis Ababa, so that all of you can come to work without having to sit in traffic. And I can assure you, we will make a tunnel stop here so that we drop you at work, Honorable Speaker. You don't have to sit in traffic. So I am beseeching you and the entire Senate, please join Nairobi in asking the national government to pay us this money. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Majority Leader.
Matters that have been raised this afternoon by colleague senators and have been directed to the committees. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to perhaps very quickly comment on two of them. One is on this security issue, in security situation in Laikipia. And Mr. Speaker, I continue to empathize with Kenyans who, out of challenges of security, lose their property. But because it's not in the traditional categorization of what property is, it's not a building or a car or a parcel of land in a prime location in this city, people don't treat it with the seriousness that it deserves. Many times when you see senators bring statements, Senator for Turkana, Senator for Laikipia is bringing, that a family has been robbed of their cattle, Mr. Speaker, it is most of the time their only source of livelihood. And therefore, it ought to be treated with the same seriousness as you would if today you're told that somebody had walked into someone's house or an apartment here in Nairobi and evicted them, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to appreciate that Senator Kinyo continues to speak on behalf of the people of Olmoran Ward in Laikipia County. And this is not the first time that this matter has come to the Senate. And therefore, I hope that the new Vice Chair of the committee, who is seated very comfortably in the House this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, is following this conversation so that they treat it with the urgency that it deserves, to ensure that Mr. Francis Ndukui and Mr. Kipruto are properly reconnected with their animals, Mr. Speaker, and compensated. Also, Mr. Speaker, is to appreciate the good work as reported in this statement that is being done by the National Police Reservists. Many times, Mr. Speaker, there has been a debate in this country by the usual ignorant gang who speak out of abundance of ignorance on issues that they know completely nothing about, Mr. Speaker, and insist that National Police Reservists are militia. You have seen from the statement of Senator Kinyo, Mr. Speaker, that it is actually the NPR that led the recovery of this animal and continue to keep certain parts of this country, Mr. Speaker, safe. And therefore, I want to continue stamping my voice, like I did when that matter first came to this House in 2018, that the government must continue to keep that service of National Police Reserve working in the difficult parts of this country where you would otherwise struggle to keep police officers, Mr. Speaker. Last thing, Mr. Speaker, is on the statement by Senator Jackson Mandago on wheat importation into the country. We spoke about this last week, and I asked and said, I would wish to understand, what is it, Mr. Speaker, that makes these millers want to ignore the wheat that has been produced locally here by our farmers? You know, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately...
Majority Leader, don't comment on the statement by, that has been read out by Senator Newton. He was holding brief for Senator Morango.
Yes.
And he wrongly read a statement meant for Senator Mandago. So that statement remains deferred. It will be read by Senator Mandago when he's in the House. So at that appropriate time, you will make your comments on that particular statement.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, I'm properly guided. I yield the floor then to other senators.
Thank you. Senator Ledama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make some comments and provide some useful information to two statements. One statement is a statement read by Senator Essie Okunyuri. Mr. Speaker, the clashes in the border of Narok and Kisii is historical. The problem started. This has got nothing to do with cattle rustling. It has got everything to do with land. Way back, there was a gentleman by the name of Odinga from the Kisii community who fundraised a lot of money to be able to buy land, Maasai land, about 10 kilometers from the Kisii border all the way to Kilgoris town. This gentleman disappeared with the money. So the land remained as being owned by the Maasai community. There is also a case in court where the Luo community of Awendo took the matter to court because of a place called Olondare. And in this area, this is a place where the late President Daniel Arap Moi used to cultivate a lot of land there. It's where there is plenty of good land that the Maasai use. The gentleman who went to court from Awendo lost that case from Nairobi, and now that case has been transferred to Kisumu. So this is an issue that these three communities must sit down and agree on, because the land belongs to the Maasai community. The Kisii community wanted to buy land, and then the community from the Luo community on our Awendo side also want to be able to take this part called Olondari. This is a challenge, Mr. Speaker. This is an issue that we have to ask ourselves whether we need to be changing laws when it comes to the issue of acquisition of land. It is a big crisis. So this thing where people are pretending that they are going in because they are following their cows which are stolen, and then they cause people to be killed. I know this weekend 2 people from my county of Narok were killed. They were killed by people who came from the neighboring counties. So this is a land crisis. This is an issue where people want to take land by force. Now, if there is pressure for one community in this country to be able to get land, that is not our problem. That is a problem of the national government. We have so much land in this country which is not occupied by anybody. Those people can be able to migrate and move to that part. But forcing and moving people in this boundary called Olondare, and also allowing land brokers to be able to bring conflict between 3 communities should not be tolerated, Mr. Speaker. So when the committee is investigating, let us not go to petty things like stealing a cow. Let us look at the problem. What is causing the Kisii community to move to Narok County to be able to claim land which they were conned by this gentleman called Oringo? You know, and what is causing the community in Awendo? You know, in fact, the problem is this, and I want to tell my sister, Esther. There's a community called the Pusunya. The Pusunya community are cousins of the Kuria community and the Kisii community. This Pusunya community is the one which are trying to say we need this land. They are the ones who donated money. They are the ones who participated in this fundraiser by this fellow called Oringo. So the problem is not the Maasai. The problem is not the Kisii. The problem are the brokers who got the money and disappeared with the money. So this issue of land is something that we must resolve for boundary disputes. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, on that issue, I think it's about time that we change the law. Because even the issue raised by Senator Cherargei on the issue of electricity, it has to go to do with the law. Section 33 of the Energy Act of 2019 bars public entities from charging Kenya Power, where it lives, for its network. The law further says that the entity can only demand the fees with approval from the Cabinet Secretary of Energy.